Hello students, this is Mr. Boyd. Today we're going to look at rational equations or equations with decimals in them. So go ahead and take out your note sheet that you were given in class and take notes and be prepared to answer some quiz questions. So as always, we want to start off by putting our name on our paper, today's date, which is September 22nd. The topic is equations, and the class is period, whatever period you're in. I'm doing this for period 4 to start with. If you're period 5, should also have period 5 on here. Okay, so the instructions for solving equations with decimals are not any different necessarily. We're still going to locate the variable. We're going to determine the operation tied to the variable, and then we're going to use inverse operations on both sides to isolate the variable, and then we're going to check our solution. So a quick reminder, if addition is tied to the variable, then we're going to use subtraction. If subtraction is tied to the variable, the inverse would be addition, so we're going to use addition. If multiplication is tied to the variable, we're going to use division. And if division is tied to the variable, we're going to use multiplication to solve. Okay? These are inverse operations. Now, a couple other reminders that we need to have about working with decimals. When working with decimals, remember, if you're adding, you need to line up the decimal first. Before you add or subtract. Okay? Now in this lesson, you can actually use a calculator if you have one. Don't ask to borrow one of mine, but you will want to use a calculator when working with decimals. Okay, so let's take a look at a few of these examples, and then I'll ask you to do a few in the video. So this first example, I see that 17.9 is being subtracted from the variable a. So let me draw my line, my river. I call it a river sometimes because I want to work on either side of the river. Okay, so since I'm subtracting 17.9 from the variable, the inverse would be to add 17.9. Some of you guys think of it as the opposite, but it's really inverse in our situation. Okay, so when I have negative 17.9 plus 17.9, that equals 0. So I'm left with the variable a on the left-hand side, put my equal sign on the line, and then we'll go ahead and get out my calculator as well. If you're working on your computer, you have this calculator as well. So then I'm going to go 32.4 plus 17.9 equals 50.3. And to see if that's a true statement, of course, just like we did on the first lesson, we would substitute that back in. 50.3 minus 17.9, and we're asking ourselves, does that equal 32.4? Well, it should, but let's check it real quick. 50.3 minus 17.9 equals 32.4, so it checks out. So 50.3 is our actual solution. Okay, I'm going to let you guys do number 2 as a your turn, and I'm going to move on to number 3. So in number 3, I see I've got this negative 4.5 right in front of the p. And whenever we see this, this is not subtraction, this is actually multiplication. This is negative 4.5 times p. So if I'm going to do the inverse, since I've got multiplication, I'm going to do division. And the way I show division is using a fraction bar. I don't use the old division symbol. Okay, let me draw my line here. Okay, so I'm going to divide by whatever's being multiplied by the variable. So that happens to be 4.5. So if I divide on the left by 4.5, I also have to divide on the right by negative 4.5. Okay. Draw that line. I'm going to put my answer underneath it. So negative 4.5 divided by negative 4.5, that's going to be 1. And 1 times p is going to be P. All right, the next thing I need to do is plug this in my calculator. So now I've got negative, let's see, where's my negative button on this calculator? Negative 60.3 divided, oh, negative, where's my negative button again? I need to make that negative. Let me clear that and start over. Depending on your calculator, sometimes you can put the negative sign in first, sometimes you have to put it in afterwards. Divided by 4.5 negative, and that's going to give me 13.4. Again, to check that, what I would do is plug it back in. Negative 4.5 times 13.4. And let's see, does that give us negative 60.3? Well, I can see a negative times a positive equals a negative, so that part looks okay. Let's check out the 4.5 times 13.4, and that is negative 60.3, so we have done the correct work. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and do number 4 with you because I noticed earlier in the week that you guys were struggling with this a little bit. So here I see a negative 8.5 plus k. Let's draw our line. The inverse of adding negative 8.5 is to add a positive 8.5 to both sides. Okay, so when I do that, that's going to eliminate this because that adds up to 0. I'm going to have my k on the left side because 0 plus k is just going to be k. Then I'm going to add 8.5 to negative 27.8. So let me put my 27.8, make it negative, and I'm going to add 8.5 to that, and that's going to give me a negative 19.3. Again, to check that, we would plug that back in, negative 8.5 plus negative 19.3. And we're asking ourselves, does that equal negative 27.8? If we've done this correctly, it should. All right, so let me clear my calculator. So 8.5 negative plus 19.3 negative does in fact equal negative 27.8. So we have got the correct answer here. Okay. So let's do one more. Let's do a division problem here. So this is a division problem. And the way I solve a division problem is using the inverse operation. I'm going to use multiplication. So since I'm dividing the variable by 0.3, I'm going to multiply both sides by 0.3. Okay? Now, when I multiply 0.3 times y, I get 0.3y over 0.3. Because this is 0.3 over 1, and I just multiply the numerators and the denominators. On the left side, I would multiply 0.3 times 16. 0.3 times 16 equals 4.8. Okay, now to finish this up, 0.3 divided by 0.3, that's 1. And 1 times y is just y, equals 4.8. Okay? All right, guys, thanks for watching these examples on solving equations with decimals. That should get you going on this lesson. Let me look down through here and see if there's any more that we might want to tackle. How about this one where we're dividing by a negative number, number 8? Okay, let's go ahead and do that one. Since we're dividing by negative 8.4, I'm going to multiply. Sorry about that, guys. I'm going to multiply both sides by negative 8.4. I'm going to do the inverse of these two. Okay, so when I do that, Negative 8.4 times C is going to be negative 8.4 C divided by negative 8.4. And then 6.2 times negative 8.4 is going to give me negative 52.08. Negative 52.08. And of course, this divided by this, negative 8.4 divided by negative 8.4, that's just 1. And 1 times C, just going to leave us with C, equals negative 52.08. Now, if they ask me to round this off to the 10th place, I'm rounding this digit, so I'm looking at this digit. If it's 5 or above, I'm going to add 1 to that. If it's 4 or less, I'm going to leave it alone. So this would actually round off to negative 52.1 if I'm asked to round to the 10th place. If I'm not asked to round to the 10th place, I'm going to put the whole answer down. Okay, guys? So I hope this lesson helped. Have a good day.